Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the doubleheader recap of Paris and Tirreno-Adriatico. A long, miserable day in the saddle for both races. The best weather in Europe at the moment is in Belgium the last week, which is kind of crazy. It was under sunny skies in GP Oettinger. But Paris-Nice, we have the first uphill finish, the real sorting out of where everybody's level is up La Loge des Gardes. But before then, there's a lot of hilly terrain from Vichy across the 164 Ks. Medium mountains, 4K, 6%, 2K, 6%. Before the final climb, 7Ks, 7%. The penultimate kilometer is only 4.5%, so you want to have a gap before then. And then the last 700 meters kicks up quite a lot at 8.5%. And we had Visma in the lead with Jorgensen, 6 seconds out of Vingegaard. Almeida on about 42 seconds, and then a lot in the 30s to 50-second range pre-stage.
But before we start the stage, I'll say what I was expecting when it comes to the stage. I was first of all hoping for a GC battle. I like breakaway victories every now and then, but I do want myself a bit of a GC fight on. There's not too many mountain stages in 1 week races, so on Loge des Gardes I was hoping for a battle of the GC riders. Then you've got Visma Leasebike settling themselves in GC before today's stage. Very well with a 1-2 in GC. But Jorgensen is in the yellow jersey. Vingegaard is second in GC. I feel like there's been a bit of like exaggeration on the drama of the dual leadership of Visma Leasebike at this race, because at the end of the day, I think before today's stage started, if you ask Jorgensen or Vingegaard off the record, if they tell their families or something, and they probably wouldn't have any trouble with the other person winning Paris-Nice, because at the end of the day, it's Paris-Nice. It's not a Grand Tour. We're not talking about a Tour de France or La Vuelta. And also, Jorgensen won last year. Let's be honest about it. If Vingegaard wins Paris-Nice or not, it's not exactly going to make the biggest mark on his palmarès either. And at the end of the day, they seem to be working quite well together as teammates. So as a consequence, I was not expecting any drama between the two. I was expecting a strategy along the likes of maybe Beckes from La Vuelta a couple of years ago, which obviously at the end of that Vuelta, there was a bit of drama when it comes to the people management in the team. But to my opinion, that is still the best strategy to do on a climb like this, where Jorgensen is your GC rider. He is your number one rider in GC. Vingegaard is also your GC rider, but he's lower in GC. So as a consequence, you've got a rider that plays defensive and the other one tries to react to things and maybe try and counter that. So that's the feeling I have going into this stage when it comes to this. But we got to talk about the weather conditions, because I'm sorry, but that made a massive mark in this stage. I'll be honest, I saw the early breakaway on a ticker. I was like, okay, it's actually a pretty strong breakaway. Ben Swift Ineos, Gernalek Arkea, Albanese EF, Leknesund UNOX, Monique Cofidis. We've got Gachiniar from Total Energy, and Alpecin has Plancard. But those riders, I reckon the most important rider in that group for me when it comes to the race is Ben Swift, because we did see Ineos trying something later in the race. But before we get there, talk about the weather conditions. What are we talking? Are we talking freezing rain? Are we talking snow, hail?
Not freezing rain. Like, guys were in shorts and then they ended up in shorts and maybe long sleeves on the climb. Or the final climb, and the weather, the problem was it was so variable. It would literally be sunny, look like a decent day. Probably if you were riding and you had gloves on and yeah, a decent jersey, long sleeve jersey on, it might have felt quite nice. And then all of a sudden it's snowing. And it's not just the temperature, it's also slippery. We see cars crashing, motorbikes crashing sort of mid-neutralization. So it's definitely, when they neutralized the race, they definitely did the right thing, because yeah, if a motorbike's just sliding off the road on these descents, then what was the actual, the riders didn't instigate it, right, Benji? Or it was just the commissaires were like, we got to stop this.
I feel like that was the case, which to me is a good thing. To me, it's a good thing that the organizers and UCI commissaire, whoever it was that played the first ball here, that they decide without needing the riders to step up and say, this is not a safe situation to be in. Maybe it was after that race motorbike crash that they responded. Maybe something happened that we didn't see necessarily that caused them to get triggered by it and say, okay, we need to figure this descent out. But that is definitely that is definitely a good thing to me that the race organizers did that. Now, to me, it seemed like, I'm sorry, but a lot of the time when we have in cycling races, the peloton or the riders complaining about weather conditions and freezing rain, descents, dangerous stuff in the races that leads to a neutralization, there's usually some kind of, there's never full unity, but is it me or does it grind my gears that when there's like a neutralization going on, that I then see two riders, I felt like a rider from Movistar was complaining about it being neutralized in the first place because it seemed like he wanted to attack the descent. It was a really odd thing, and to me that kind of, it defeats the whole point of the peloton should stand together on this, you know?
Yeah, and I think there was some blowback for that. I think Mads Pedersen was a bit cranky about that, and he wanted to punish Movistar for it afterwards because, some riders weren't ready to start after neutralization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the end, they did what they could, but then it takes it out of some riders, Benji. You know, when you see a neutralization in the cold weather and then a restart with a mountaintop finish, you know multiple riders who should be there in the final are going to crumble and have just completely lose everything on GC. That always seems to happen. It's normal if your body shuts down from the rhythm of the race. But I felt like, do you think the neutralization hurt or helped Ineos?
Well, to be clear, the situation at that point going into neutralization is breakaway with Swift, 2 minutes on the peloton, 2 minutes 20 on the peloton. But in between, we've got a move by Ineos, which I don't know how in-depth we've gone over it already. Not that in-depth really, is Starling and Tobias Foss making that move before the neutralization, trying to bridge towards the front. First of all, I want to expressly highlight, I love that Ineos is doing this because I've been very critical of Ineos' strategy in 2024, which I stand by my words that their strategies in the last 2 years before 2025 just were not that good. They were very traditional, old school, to the point that they were hurting themselves in the process, their own chances as well. And to see them go for aggressive and interesting strategy, let's be honest about it. Foss and Tarling attacking with what is it, 55, 60 kilometers to go on a mountain stage with a solo, and on paper you'd say that it sounds like it's going nowhere, that's going to be something stupid, but at the end of the day, what's going to happen if they don't do that? They're going to ride to the final climb, and their GC riders, which is Arensman and maybe Foss, are probably going to be dropped on the final climb anyway by the leaders of other teams, which I would consider Vingegaard, Jorgensen, Almeida, or maybe even a Skelmos, a Lipovic. I expect those riders to, on paper, drop Arensman on this finish, you know? So I think it's a very good thing for Ineos to do that. Now, I do think the neutralization actually helps them, because the neutralization isn't just the peloton stops and it's done for and they restart from that same point. No, it's a 20-kilometer long neutralization until the bottom of the descent, where the time is equaled, where the peloton can't take any time back. On paper, that also means that Foss and Tarling can't take any time on the front group, but I still believe that it benefits them. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think you just get moved closer to the finish with the same gap, so it should benefit. I mean, that's assuming the peloton would have gradually brought you down. Maybe, I mean, in another world, this works. If Mads Pedersen and Trek don't decide to, what were Visma going to chase with? Like, Mads Pedersen, like Visma had no riders up after Mads Pedersen started smashing the uphill hills about 30 k's from the finish. It was just Vingegaard and Jorgensen. There was no Lemon or Campenaerts to control for the stage win, and Niels Pollitt was pulling a little bit as well. But I mean, you look at eventually, just a quick spoiler, but Foss loses by 28 seconds. Mads Pedersen's worth more than 28 seconds in this chase by a long way. So great move from Ineos. Didn't work out, but if you wait in the peloton with Foss, you're going to get cooked. Arensman's not going to win, so go for it.
Exactly, and I gotta say, it was pretty beautiful to see basically a second team time trial in a row. Yeah, in a row. Yesterday we had the actual team time trial. Today we had, after that neutralization stopped, to be clear, from that point, which is, I think with about 28 kilometers to go, they restarted the race. The organizers and UCI commissar, whatever, then times the gap that every group gets. So the first group gets the gap they had before the neutralization, so 2 minutes 20. Then the second group, which is the Foss and Darling Group gets a minute and a bit behind Tad. It's an interesting thing, but then we see Swift waiting from the front group, so it's also, they immediately change to try and get Foss as far as possible up the road from the moment that neutralization gets undone, go into last 28k. So I think they played it the best they could have, and you said it, 28 seconds or so is the gap. I gotta say, Foss would have lost more without it.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. He got to do his own pace on the climb. I think on the rolling hills, he's in the wheel of Tarling, and with Ben Swift behind him, you're getting a good draft. Okay, maybe you're pushing 5 or 10 extra watts on the flat, but yeah, it was definitely the play. It actually moves him into the top 10 on GC. They now have 2 in the, I don't expect him to stay there, but still, I mean, he can probably try it again. Like, just go try it again. And I mean, probably who's going to react? Like, he's in a perfect place to try it.
Yeah.
So yeah, respect for that. But yeah, as I said, Mads Pedersen, in another life, he would have been like Wout van Aert level mountain, sort of all-rounded, all-terrain vehicle.
Imagine him, I think we've said this 2-3 years ago. Imagine him at Ineos like 5 years ago.
Yeah. For Broome or Bernal. I mean, imagine him in the Giro 2021 with Bernal. They would have gone crazy.
Yeah. Even the sparkle that we saw when he rode for Richie Porte in 2020.
Yeah, Richie Porte on Trek. Yeah, he like passed 2 high mountain passes and started the final climb in a group of 20.
There's a couple of riders like that you can immediately think of, like, okay, this rider should really fit well there, but Pedersen is one of those where you're like, okay, it's weird, because with Kwiatkowski, I'm like, I wish he wasn't stuck in that role for the majority of his career. With Moscon at his Sky Prime, also, I wish he wasn't stuck in that role for the majority of that Sky days, because he looked really good as a whole as a rider then. But with Pedersen, I've got this feeling of, I wish for one Grand Tour I saw it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would love to see I mean, if you put Pedersen with Pogacar at UAE for like the gravel stage last year, curtains. I mean, so
yeah.
Yeah, respect to him. Incredible pull. It was for Schelmoser. They had no mountain domestiques, but they didn't need one, because he even does, like, he starts pulling the start of this 7K climb. I can't remember how many Ks he does, maybe 2Ks, 2.5 Ks. He brings the gap down to under 30 seconds, and then the GC guys, they're going to eat into that with Foss sort of having to ride on his own. And then we see Florian Lipovitz move up. Bora did a good TT yesterday. He's been at altitude before. I listened to his interview before the stage. It was clear he was going to try something to test himself. He goes. Martinez follows. Vingegaard follows. And it became just... Visma's strategy was clearly not to pace with either of the leader, but to just follow in the wheels.
Honestly, before the stage, I would have given exactly the same strategy to these riders, where Jorgensen is the one that plays defensive, just sits there and tries to follow the group, while Vingegaard, who is lower in GC, tries to follow the move that happened up the road. And even we'll get to what he does next, but I want to go on a detour for a second. There's a moment in this group where I want to talk about it. We see Jorgensen on the side of the road. If we're looking at the TV on the right side of the road, literally at the side of the road, Lipovitz is riding behind him, and the road opens up a little bit in front of him, but not enough of a gap for Lipovitz to move past Jorgensen. He tries to do so, uses his head to kind of move Jorgensen aside, which that's not going to work. Jorgensen, his mass is bigger than the head of Lipovitz, basic maths, so that move ain't going to work. Now, Lipovitz still tries to push himself through. In doing so, riding off the asphalt of the road into the grass next to the road, and basically ending up almost doing what Matichuk did at RVV a couple of years ago, where he slides back into the road and nearly crashes half the group, which to me, that's a yellow card. And there's people online that says, okay, didn't look on purpose. Moving past Jorgensen was definitely on purpose. That was an attempt to try and move past an attack, is what I saw. And if you then make a mistake and you go off-road and you nearly crash half the group, it doesn't need the consequence of half the group crashing to be penalized for me. So for me, that's yellow card.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, no one goes down, but for sure, it was like he's also a bit late to cycling, sort of Roglic style from biathlon.
Yeah.
But in that case, it could have been worse. Could have been worse. But yeah, we see attacks going. Almeida tries as well. He does his like classic Almeida through the hairpin, looks to everyone, he's like, I'm attacking. And then everyone slides onto the wheel, but you can see he's in good shape, pushing. McNulty's sitting at the back of the group. And then Martinez goes another time, Vingegaard in the wheel, and then Vingegaard counters. Initially, he can't get separation, and then he refuses to ride with Martinez. Martinez paces for a little bit, and then Vingegaard goes again, maybe 3.5 Ks out, drops Martinez, who was actually very strong because then he's sitting in between the two groups. From what I could see, it was pretty much Almeida from the point Vingegaard drops Martinez. Almeida pacing the group behind, especially on the climbing section. And then the gap's not going out hugely because if you remember, say, Tourmalet Vuelta 23, Vingegaard doesn't get Pogacar's 30-second gap straight away. It was more 1 second, another second, another second. But that didn't happen. It got to a peak of about 10 seconds, and Almeida's keeping it close. Then we get to the 4%. So it was like, Vingegaard could be caught, definitely. If someone jumps from the back of the group, he can be caught. Then they get to the flat section, Benji, and they flatten across. Jorgensen's in the wheel, blocking everything. And then at that moment, I thought, Vingegaard's got it for sure.
Yeah, well, I thought so as well. I thought Vingegaard looks like he has it, but I was never really sure. I gotta be honest about that, because the gap, I was believing the time gap on the screen, and while I saw that group being a little blocked, I saw the time gap and it went down from 10 seconds to like 8. So I was like, huh? Did the gap become smaller? And I was waiting for a camera angle, and we saw a camera angle from behind, and Vingegaard was simply riding in front of the group, and then we saw Joao Almeida, who, like you said, was trying to keep the gap close. But we know Joao Almeida as a rider. He's had his history. Sometimes he gets dropped on a climb, then we see him gradually coming back in the distance, and sometimes he gets back, sometimes he doesn't. I feel like this year so far, combination of Algarve and on this mountain finish, very similar ways of riding when it comes to Almeida to his old strategy, but the difference is that he didn't get dropped from the group. So he's now starting his attack from the group instead of from behind the group, compared to a couple of years ago, which is a pretty satisfying position to be in if you're Joao Almeida or one of his fans. And we see Almeida, it seems like gradually clawing back the gap. And I'll be honest, 2 corners to go, I still thought, okay, Vingegaard, he doesn't look like he's comfortable, looks like he's suffering a lot, but he's still got a chance. But then with a corner to go, Almeida is getting so close, and what was the most worrying part? Who was gapped off the back of his wheel?
Yeah, Almeida gets a gap to everybody. He saw McNulty, and McNulty, who was sitting on the whole time, he starts to move up to sprint, and Jorgensen goes to his wheel, and then Almeida blows both of them away. He just surges in the saddle like he did in Portugal on stage 2 about 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and drops them both. And then Vingegaard's tying up, and then you see the 100 meters to go. Almeida's nearly on him, and he comes past him to win the stage. The second time in under 30 days, he's zoomed past Vingegaard in the last punch of an uphill finish to win. But today he wins the stage, although it's his teammate in Algarve, ahead of Vingegaard by 1 second. Schelmoser was very passive. Which, to be honest, in terms of the end result, was correct. He comes third and he's on 2 seconds. Martinez, despite attacking, very, very good on 4th. So maybe Vingegaard works with him instead of attacking him. It's a different story. Lipovitz 5th after being aggressive on 6 seconds. Jorgensen's the surprise, Benji, who's looked very good in the uphill sprints. He got a free ride, including on the 4% section just before the punch. And he gets dropped by Almeida, Schelmoser, Martinez, Lipovitz, and finishes 6th. So, yeah, the 1-2 didn't work out for Visma today. McNulty 7th. Should have probably helped Almeida. Tejada 8th. Aronsman 9th. Champoussin 10th. Yeah, because if McNulty shreds it for Almeida, Benji, he's taken time. Proper time.
Exactly. Then again, I don't know what Almeida prefers when it comes to the tempo in the group, as in, does he prefer to ramp it up himself at the tempo he desires? Or does he want...
drafting's better.
I would expect so, but Almeida does not exactly have the history of that. Like, anyone who follows the podcast know I have a bit of a soft spot for Almeida as a rider, but Yeah, I can't deny as a bit of an Almeida fan that he's not exactly the most draft-looking rider in the world based on the last 5 years, because he literally dropped off the back of groups to do his own tempo in the past. But that being said, I agree that McNulty should have paced for Almeida, and that on paper it definitely leads to a gap that is more notable than what we saw on the road today. Now, I absolutely love the final, by the way. This stage looked very, very, very sad with about 30 kilometers to go. At that point, I was thinking, okay, let's hope nobody's seriously injured. Butrago was out, abandoned the race, so I was hoping there's no other riders that are going to be crashing out here. But from that point onwards, I had half given up on the stage. And the final climb starts, and we actually get such good action. And even from Visma Leasebike's perspective, I don't think I would have done anything differently. Because at the end of the day, you could say, oh, Vingegaard ended up getting passed by Almeida, so it wasn't the best strategy. At the end of the day, Vingegaard, when he decides to Martinez, it's not like in his field of view, he's got like an energy bar like on Pro Cycling Manager telling him, okay, you have enough energy to make it to the line or not. No, it's Jonas Vingegaard. You want to beat Tadej Pogacar in July. If you want to show yourself and want to show that you're one of the 2 best GC riders in the world, the second one in my opinion right now, then I'm sorry, but then you fucking try to drop Lenny Martinez and you try and go for the victory. So I'm perfectly fine with what Visma Leasebike did. They're still in a good position in GC. You'll go through that in a second. But at the end of the day, they just lost to Almeida, who was better in the situation that ended up happening.
Well, yeah, I mean, Almeida spanks both Jorgensen and Vingegaard whilst having to pace himself. It's not like someone did it for him. Like, if Schelmoser sprints the last bit, you'd be like, all right, well, he played it smart, but he might not have necessarily been the strongest. Almeida, he had to chase. He was the one chasing. So, again, a very impressive performance from him. The problem, as you said, Benji, is, well, we'll speak about riders that lost a lot of time today. Felix Gall loses 156, Sheffield 159, Ben O'Connor 210, Paulus 216. So, Schachmann 3 minutes. So a fair few. Ivan Romeo 1 minute 07. So that's a lot of time. Whereas riders like Stora kind of work themselves now slowly towards the top 10 after Tudor didn't have a very good team time trial. And the updated GC rankings, Vingegaard goes into the GC lead 5 seconds ahead of Jorgensen and 33 seconds ahead of Schelmoser, who's now on. Yeah, imagine if he won stage 1, Benji, or whatever it was. Lipovitz.
Question.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, sir. You can continue.
Lipovitz 4th on GC on 36 seconds. Almeida moves up 13 spots to 30 on 37 seconds to 5th. Aronsman 56. McNulty 58. Foss 106. Martinez 109. Castrillo 122. A lot of riders between 122, Castrillo and Stora in 14th on 139. So top 10's really in play for a lot of riders. But yeah, this Paris just got a whole lot more interesting, Benji.
Definitely. But I also want to broaden the discussion outside of Paris for a second. Joao Almeida as a rider. Before this year, we'd say, okay, you want steady climbs, maybe a bit steeper, not the lightest gradient. And you want it to be maybe a slightly longer climb for Almeida as well, so that it's not super punchy either. And on paper, you would argue that a multi-mountain stage fits in better than a Uperto stage, is also what I would have in mind before this year. Now, looking at Alto de Foix and Loge de Gard, not exactly the stages that apply to the exact pattern that I just rolled out. First of all, is he getting better at stages that we didn't classify as Almeida stages before 2025? We know didn't he also train with Sola this year now instead of a different trainer in the past? That's also a factor maybe. But also on top of that, am I the only one that's super triggered by the fact that he's going to the Tour de France and the Vuelta and not the Giro?
Yeah, Almeida, but he can't go to the Giro with Ayuso.
I don't care. Just go together. Fight each other on the bike. It's okay. I'm okay with it. It's not like McNulty was helping Almeida today.
Catalunya 2021?
Yeah, but Almeida fucked up himself there. He got dropped on the first climb.
They both are the strongest riders today in their respective races. Like,
yes.
Yeah, but if they went to the Giro, it'd be crazy. But yeah, the Tour is. I mean, Almeida's also now if Visma have the Jorgensen 1-2 punch,
Yeah.
Almeida at the moment is better than Jorgensen on the longer climbs. Positioning, etc., is a bit different, but
For me, he kind of always was, though.
Yeah,
I had
on the
Almeida
longer
higher
climbs,
than
yeah, as a
Jorgensen.
pure climber, yeah.
Yeah. But like, obviously, when it comes to medium mountain stages, that's a whole different story when it comes to Almeida, especially if there's like a fight for positioning at certain point that someone is expected to be in a good position for. That wobble is still there when it comes to Almeida. I gotta say that. But when it comes to the rest of this race now, we had Loge de Garde. That was a mountain stage in this race. What is left tomorrow is actually a pretty crazy stage as well. And is that the Almeida worry stage?
In this Pyrenees?
Yes, the last one as well, to be honest. But
yeah, that's what I was like, that's why they sent him to this race. But then Tirreno weather was awful. I mean, Catalunya, he would have been really good. But yeah, it's all over. And McNulty's no slouch. He came third in Paris last year. McNulty's better on the like stage 8 type. Well, maybe not. Anyway, McNulty's good. He's up there in GC. But how they work together, it's not fully ironed out.
Long attack McNulty, in my opinion, on tomorrow or the last stage.
Yeah. And how should Visma play at Benji?
Well, there's still 1 and 2 in GC, but it's switched the other way around now, where I think it obviously depends on the situation in the race, but if I, for example, say that I see McNulty as the rider that attacks early on in a last stage, or even tomorrow on one of the punchy climbs, I don't know, I haven't looked in depthly at the stage of tomorrow yet, we'll do that in a second, but like, to me, the response of Visma depends on which riders attack. For example, if McNulty attacks, I'm okay with Jorgensen responding to McNulty, you know? But if a climber that on paper could be better than McNulty attacks, then after today, I'm not 100% confident either, if that makes sense. But I would say like that Jorgensen is now the... Sorry?
Like a Lipovitz.
Yes, or an Almeida, of course.
Yeah.
To me, Vingegaard is now the other way around as today, from now onwards.
Like if there becomes a situation, Jorgensen has to go on the front to solve it and pace. Worst case.
Pace, or it's probably going to be responding to attacks and marking attacks more on climbs than actual pacing, I think. Because let's be honest, if you look at the team that Visma Lease Bike had on the final climb here,
there was none.
At the end of the day, it was Jorgensen and Vingegaard. So in an ideal world, you'd have a mountain domestique that takes care of the pacing if attacks like that happen early. But I didn't see that today when it comes to the team, you know?
Yeah, and like a lot of teams also didn't have... UAE also had 2 leaders, no domestique. Movistar had 4 for a long time. But then Mads Pedersen's just spat them out the back. Mads Pedersen, I would repeat, crazy today. Like, if every race was in -5 degrees rain, he'd win the Tour de France. If the Tour de France was held in... if the Tour de France was actually held in Greenland in December, Mads Pedersen would win so easily. Imagine Mads Pedersen started doing like January gravel races.
Wait, question. Because Vingegaard is now in the yellow jersey, does that mean that Greenland is virtually back Danish? Because it's all about the fight for Greenland, right?
Yeah, because
between Jorgensen and...
There was the elections last night. Yeah, as everyone commented, Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, your favorite geopolitical, where you get all your updates and news. But yeah, the Greenland vote last night. Danish rider attacks American today. What does that mean? I don't know.
I don't know.
But it backfires. So then America's got to sort it out.
Should Jorgensen put 15% tariffs on the watts of Jonas tomorrow?
Can he apply a tariff? You say, okay, you go to the mechanic and say, hey, you got to have his disc brake. It's got to rub today, just a little bit, just the back one. We need to put tariffs on Almeida, bro. Dropped it twice in a month.
He has to put tariffs on McNulty. 5% less dessert tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's true. McNulty got to help Almeida, man. Because the one time the one time, and credits to my friend Jay Vine, I'm pretty sure in that Giro stage Almeida won. He ignored Almeida and was just on Bondone and was like, we're going for it. Roglic is fucked. We're going for it. And just drilled it. And then, Almeida won his biggest race of his career. Because I don't think he's the guy that beats his hand on the table before the stage and says, we're going to do this XYZ for me today.
Can I be honest? I am a little bit worried about the fact that Jonas doesn't just dominate the Lodge-de-Garde finish. You know, compared to Pogacar.
Well, compared to Pogacar, of course.
Because, let's be honest about it, he doesn't exactly have the greatest history when it comes to this climb. But I would
say he did better
Vingegaard
watts today than 23.
Well, that's for sure. But I would expect a little bit more when it comes to Vingegaard today. To be honest, I expected him to win today's stage. As simple as that. Because I need to see that before the Tour de France. To not say at the start of the Tour de France, Pogacar is going to win, you know?
Well, if the Tour de France was held today, there'd be one winner.
Yeah. There's still
clear.
time, but it's a little bit worrying for me.
To be honest, when I saw Vingegaard on the descent, when Pedersen was sending it after the restart in the cold, and then when he was attacking, I was like, surprised. Because there's news coming in. Luke just put in the chat. Apparently, the neutralization was not as smooth as we thought. Apparently, it's a shit show. Yeah, like riders there's some really crazy interviews coming out. They were like, riders were half undressed. They just gone back to the cars, and then they were told that we're starting in 2 minutes. And then, like Oliver Narson's very, very annoyed, and he's not like he's not a guy he's on a French team for a long time. He's an honor the race type guy, I would expect.
He's very honest.
Yeah.
And he's pro safety, which is a good thing for a rider. And he's being critical towards Movistar in this article, which is also what I kind of hinted at, but I wasn't sure about, that they immediately tried to start racing again while some other riders were still between the cars, that there was zero solidarity from Movistar to other riders. That is the vibe I'm getting reading the quotes, and I can only respect Oliver's words in this.
So now it becomes more clear why they were pissed at Movistar. So Movistar weren't angry that the race was stopped. What they did was, when the riders were still like coming back from the neutralization, they opened up the race full gas in the rolling terrain.
Yeah.
But there's a Sportster article. A lot of riders' favorite words, calling it big casino. And remember, in the Dauphiné last year was a big crash. But to be honest, in the end, we still had a good fight on the mountaintop finish. So for us spectators, it was good. For the riders, maybe less so. Joao Almeida.
Oh, Patrick,
in the cold.
Patrick.
Unbelievable. Oh, yeah.
There's a man in the chat. I don't know if I want to call him out, but there's a man called Sebastian Berwick in the chat saying that the restart was fucked. Is that just Australian verbs, or how do you see that?
Well, if Seb says it, then it must be true. And listen, me and Seb have just come from, well, no, he didn't go back to Australia, but yes, a little bit different to when you're going up to Mount Mee on Christmas morning in 35 degree heat.
An Australian man in rain.
He complained about, I've seen, if you see his training rides in Brisbane, he'll go 9 a.m. He's on main roads, people throwing beer bottles at him, trying to kill him. He's like, yeah, this is great. Like,
should have been in the break. What can I say?
Yeah, exactly. I told you to go and break, Seb. Alrighty, that's Paris-Nice. We should preview tomorrow's stage.
Did he ask you this morning what weather was going to be, and you just didn't respond? I
actually didn't think there was going to be bad weather today. I mean, Andorra it's like 0 and raining, but that's normal. That's normal. And then Seb says O'Connor and Gall lost out big time because of this shit. Australian solidarity. Okay, well, we're going to update you tomorrow once we'll corral all the interviews into a coherent. We'll find out what exactly happened, because clearly there's more to the neutralization than we indicated. But we should preview tomorrow's stage. I do not know the weather forecast, but I dare say it's not warming up quickly. Is stage 5 from Saint-Just-en-Chevalet to Le Côte Saint-André. It is a hill stage. Benji, don't laugh at my pronunciation. And
that was special.
It was special. and it's really hilly. Starts off with 2 hills, then it's just rolling all day, a lot of category 3s, and then a series of 4.5 walls start. 1,200 meters, 9%, straight into 1,100 meters, 8%, then 1K, 8%, then 1.3Ks, 8%, then a little 400 meter, 8%, then 1.7Ks, 11% to finish. So the hardest one is the finish, and I've seen this. It's really steep. It's even a fake news climb. It's like there's a K in there at about 14, 13%. If there's bad weather, this will be carnage. You think Skelmo?
True. I'm thinking hill classics when I say this parkour, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it is 1.7K. It's not like a Flemish short climb, you know? So it's a bit longer, 11%. I like the idea of a scale mode, has a bit of a punch at the end of a climb like this. That's possible. But it's just going to be GC riders, I think. The not GC riders I can think of is Alaphilippe going to be able to fight for the stage win? No, I don't think so. Would I love to see it? Yes, I'd love to see it. Is Hirschi at this race or the other one? Hirschi is at?
She's at Tirreno.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Who else
he was
exists
bad today.
that can
He's
do
not good in
well?
the cold.
Yeah. I also don't really see this as a perfect finish for Almeida, to be honest.
You're right. Schelmoser is really, this is good for him. This is good for him. I mean, could we see action earlier, Benji? Like if you're McNulty.
Yeah, like that's what I'm hoping for. But I'm not sure he'll do that though.
Who's going to control the brake?
Good question. I think there's going to be a lot of riders that could want to win from the breakaway, because there's so many teams that have lost time with one rider or another rider. So,
and Visma after today, are they going to be so gung-ho that they're going to absolutely win the stage?
Yeah. Alaphilippe wins from the breakaway is my final pick. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's nice. Let me pick someone who was like half decent. Who was in the arenas? I think UAE is every man for himself. I think Johnny Narvaez gets in the break. Where'd he finish today? He was surely in, fucking hasn't even finished today. 7 minutes. So, yeah, he's Narvaez from the break. Book it.
Okay. I like the idea, to be honest. I hope it's one of those breakaway fights between punchers. I would dig that. And then we see a bit of a battle in GC 14 minutes later. Well, 14 is probably exaggeration because it's a 1 week race. So majority of the riders are not even on 14 minutes yet. That being said, we've got another stage to talk about, sir. We've got Tirreno-Adriatico, which also had a torrential rain condition, I would classify it as. We had a breakaway of 2 riders, Dries de Bon and Pietro Bon, on a stage that is a bit odd. It was described by, I think, you and others as a bit of a Milano-Sanremo-like stage, but we also in-depthly went into the parkour yesterday and came to the conclusion that it could go many different ways. If it's seriously ridden, then it could go for GC. If it's not seriously ridden, then a Milan could survive. It could be the middle ground where we see the punchers fight it out. Would Van der Poel survive? Would we see a Ganna attack on this climb? Would we, for example, see a Ganna sprint? That's also possible. And then other questions, will Manier survive a climb like this? Like, it's like, basically, for the people that don't know, the final climb is as followed. It is 18 kilometers at 3% average, a few kilometers that are harder, but the majority are basically falls flat uphill, I classify, but just so many altitude meters throughout the stage. I think 3,000 plus in 240 kilometers, which is extremely long. Now, I open my TV while the drama in Paris is happening, and I see the same exact weather conditions, rain with nothing really happening until we get a crash with 23 kilometers to go, which is Jonathan Milan sliding out in that corner. Was that his own mistake?
I guess so. He was in good position, surrounded by his team. No one else crashed. He was the first to crash. So I didn't see someone move sharply in front of him, for example, although I didn't see the helicopter shot. He goes down with Consoni hard too. I thought he was going to abandon the race. I thought he'd broken his wrist. And it's crazy because all that rain jacket's on and he's a big boy and it's wet and he slides and he really still hurt himself. So it's just different crashes affect guys differently. And yeah, these sort of, when I saw the weather in Tirreno, I was like, maybe Milan would have made it, Benji. Maybe. I don't know. But when I saw that weather and the length of stage, I was like, it ain't going to be a sprint of the sprinters today. Like, and it really wasn't. Like Coy and those guys got Melier, they just parked it, especially because, at the base of that, the steep part of that long climb, Ineos just spanked it. And basically, unless you really were motivated like Milan with the team around you, it was curtains. So what happened next, Benji, shocked me, I have to say. Like, absolutely shocked me on this climb. So as I just said, there's a steep part and then really a gradual section before it climbs up 4Ks 5%. Ben Healy attacks.
Yeah.
The last person I expect following a vintage Ben Healy attack on false flat uphill 1% is Juan Ayuso. The first man to respond. I was like, bruh, you're the GC leader. It's 10Ks from the finish. It's also a semi-sprint stage. Where's your team?
And on top of that, it was not an immediate response. It was like 10 meters later, he decides to try and bridge towards Healy. So first of all, Ayuso should never be closing Healy here, regardless of whether he has a team or not. That is not his responsibility in this scenario. So that's number one. 2, UAE Team Emirates, no one is there for Ayuso. From this point onwards until the finish, really poor performance from the team of UAE around Ayuso because he was completely isolated. So that's shocking to me. Because the team on paper they have is not weak. I don't expect Adam Yates to be great on this gradient, I won't lie. But a Großschartner, I'm sorry, but what's the point of you if you're not here for this stage, you know? That's the thing of Del Toro, yes, on the one thing that I'm not surprised that a stage of 240 kilometers might have an influence on a younger rider that doesn't have experience with that length of racing, maybe. So that's the one excuse I can find for Del Toro. And maybe he's not part of maybe he's a summer rider. Who knows?
Even Rui Oliveira.
Yeah.
But he finished on 16 minutes, Benji. Coy finishes on 3 minutes.
True.
Like, that climb wasn't that long. I'm talking at 20Ks to go. But I also have to say, Ayuso didn't give his teammates much time to come to the front to control the situation either. Like, he also just basically... But in the end, it worked because it was so shocking. He creates a split. He literally creates a split, and he's now going clear. Ganna starts responding, the big blue jersey. Thank God he was in a different jersey so we could see. Yeah. We got zero idea really who's in the group, by the way. Which sprinters have dropped. We know Milan's not coming back because everyone's in black rain jackets. There's motorbikes can't get close to the riders. Thankfully, EF were in pink.
Credits to Ineos who now have red ones, no?
Yeah, Ineos we could tell.
So I swear we've had this discussion in the past. I feel like there was an explanation that I got by random Twitter users, so this could be complete bullshit, that in the past there was this reasoning of they make it black because dyeing it reduces the waterproofness of the rain jacket. I don't know if that's true anymore at all, by the way. But that was the reason back in the day, apparently.
I think so.
Is it a subtle strategy to wear black rain jackets so that your competition doesn't know you're the one attacking?
Oh, no, you should do that. Like in a Giro stage like this with a few more hills, sneak in, seriously. Because people probably, like Ayuso, unfortunately, was in the white because he was in a full white jacket. So
Jonas's helmet is a risk.
It's a problem. That's why Van der Poel didn't win World Champs last year, so that he could blend in with the other Alpecin guys. So
probably works.
They had to give him a new bike.
Every time he attacks, to be honest, even in today's stage, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Van der Poel. I have to like look at his like arm and his shape is also quite noticeable, but also especially the arm. Anyway, like you said, Healy made a move. Ayuso ends up making the first move to close that. Ganna makes the second move to close that. Comes back together. EF rolls another attack. I think with Richard Carapaz.
Yep.
Then it's Mathieu van der Poel trying to bridge with the plus in the wheel, trying to close that down. And then it kind of pulls down a little bit. Everybody comes back together again. And the plus starts controlling for Ganna. What is the logic behind that at the moment?
well, Ganna can win the sprint. There's literally no sprinters left. It's just like 65 kilo punchers and Van der Poel. And then I think there was a mixture of also like De Plus. It's kind of a good finish for a GC De Plus move if he can get away, which is I think why he was jumping. Maybe he was also trying to. You do have one guy who can sprint who's over 70 kilos here. That's Mathieu Van der Poel, who was the favorite for this stage, I think, or maybe joint favorite with Milan. And yeah, in the end, there's just so much chaos. And then 3Ks to go on the climb itself. Nothing really.
Nothing.
I can't remember actually. I can't remember. Nothing. No move went where I was like, "This is it."
Yeah.
On the 5K 5% climb, which crests 4Ks to go, and so I was like, "Oh well, like maybe this is going to be a group sprint," because I thought, a Healy move would sneak away. Ganna goes into the descent, doesn't trust his sprint. We're near the finish now. He goes into the descent. Pidcock rides all out to close it. I do think if Pidcock doesn't go there and immediately stops, because it also wasn't really his responsibility, then Ganna maybe wins. He doesn't close it. Then Ayuso starts closing it, which is kind of crazy because Ganna's not a GC threat. Then Van der Poel snap closes it, sprints past, but then stops. And we've seen this actually quite a few times. This reminds me of Van der Poel's Gent-Wevelgem 2020 style move, where he he stops Ganna winning the race, but that's also his race done here, because that's exactly what, because you don't close Pippo Ganna for nothing. Even G was closing it, who I thought he won a Dauphiné sprint like this.
Yeah, the Dauphiné sprint like this wasn't it more that Gregoire decides to attack and that G followed that move and then G outsprinted Gregoire, which I wouldn't classify it as like a Dauphiné sprint, but I know what you mean. Like he has a bit of a kick and could do it in a group as well, is what you're pointing at. But it's not just that if you close Ganna, you're burning energy. You're also doing it at the perfect time for the others in your wheel. Because let's say with a kilometer to go, you close Ganna, you enter the last kilometer, you're now in second position, going into the last 700 meters. Everybody else is trying to position themselves, and they will undoubtedly wave over you in a road that, in my opinion, was also narrowing a little bit, not super narrow, but in doing so, boxing you in. And that's exactly what happens not just to Van der Poel, but also to Ganna, because they were at the front going into that final kilometer. And their positioning alone kills their race from this point onwards. Even if they have the energy to still sprint and win this stage, even if Van der Poel still has it physically, it's impossible to win from the position they are in because of that waving over effect. But who did I see with 700 meters to go on the left side of the road? Spanish champion of Cofidis, Alex, the not so epic.
I thought he was going to win.
Anything.
Dead set. I was like, this is all come together. Van der Poel and Ganna have just ridden themselves out of it. Healy's done the late flyer, but it's actually just a lead out. You're in perfect position. The road's open. It's slightly uphill. You don't even have to do like a big peak acceleration, which we know he doesn't have. I was like, he's Basque, so in the rain he has to be good. I was standing up. I was like,
he can't sprint.
The problem is he can't sprint.
Who can't sprint. That's the problem.
That is the problem when you're trying to win a sprint. I've always found that. And indeed, he does not. And the man who does, another guy, I'm pretty sure I've slandered this man many times. I've slandered Andrea Vendrame and Clement Venturini as the worst sprinters who can't sprint, who actually should be punchy, climby boys. I swear to God, they've not won a sprint, either of them, in 10 years. But today, Andrea Vendrame, perfect position. Healy leads it out. Launches. Pidcock, though. Pidcock was in his wheel, and I thought Pidcock was going to roll him because you couldn't even see him. He was drafting so well. And I'm like, he's going to come out anytime now. Vendrame, strong sprint. In the Giro last year, he was mega strong. He won a stage from the breakaway where he rode away from everybody on like a sort of moderate high mountain stage, including Narvaez, and wins again. And Tirreno last year, he was fifth on the Gualdi. The stage of this last year, he was fifth. in better weather conditions. So he's got form for this. Really impressive.
Yeah, super impressive. Surprise winner, to be honest. I had selected the Decathlon rider. I don't think this counts because I selected Godon instead of Vendrame. But at the end of the day, Vendrame winning this epic victory. And Isaac, Vendrame is a rider that has optimized this palmarès. The man won 2 stages at the Giro in 2021. I think the stage where Brambilla and George Bennett were fighting in the second group behind him. Then he ended up winning one of those like epic mountain stages that ended up being a nothing burger. Is that correct in 2024?
Yeah.
And next to that, he won Tirreno-Adriatico as well. That's 3 for an Italian guy. That's as perfect as it gets. And I think he also podiumed. He was riding for Androni Giocattoli, whatever it was called in that year. A Giro stage where maybe Amaru Antunes or Chavez or something won the stage where Vendrame, in my opinion, was maybe going to win, but he had a mechanical on the final hill.
Chavez won it, yeah. He was second.
That was an epic stage, if I recall correctly. Well, not really, but he almost won that after a mechanical. That's crazy.
The reason I like cycling is not just because of, and you know, it's in both state races today, it's not just watts per kilo, here's the parkour, this guy will do it. It's outdoors, obviously has to be within safety, but it's outdoors, and you do have riders who perform better in different conditions. Juan Ayuso is a monster in the cold and wet. Juan Ayuso is so good, and he doesn't feel them. In the heat, I have my question marks about Juan Ayuso. Vendrame looks like one of those characters too. He's never done anything that I've ever seen in summer or August, which is summer. But in the shittest weather conditions, or when there's a Giro stage, that a 220k Giro breakaway mountain stage that no one wants to jump in the breakaway, he's the guy that jumps, and he's the guy that's won them twice, and he wins today. So yeah, hats off to him. Yeah,
loved seeing that, seeing him win. At the end of the day, we saw all the riders we kind of hope to see. A Mathieu van der Poel, a Ghana attack, a user trying to respond to stuff. But at the end of the day, it's an underdog that rides, not even an underdog. I wasn't expecting Vendrame to be relevant for the stage, but he did it. So that's nice to see. But what are we having on the menu tomorrow when it comes to the stage?
And the GC, because it's not Pidcock second, Gregoire third, Rick Plumbers franking that form from Muscat Classic fourth, Adria fifth, Velasco sixth, Fiorelli seventh. The Italians are pretty good in the cold, you know. Aramburu eighth, Battistella 9th, Ganna 10th. It's easy to say Ganna fucked it up, but if Ganna doesn't ruin Van der Poel's race, Van der Poel might beat him in the sprint. So I think Ganna was worried about going in the sprint with Van der Poel. I'm not sure he needed to be. But in the end, I also thought when Pidcock flicked his elbow, I nearly turned the TV off. I was like, Ganna wins. So
Ganna could have won from that move. So at the end of the day, he doesn't, but it's too hindsight for me to say, Ganna should have played it differently. Because in my opinion, he had a chance to win that.
Actually, big ramifications for the GC. Simon Yates loses 31 seconds. He gets gapped at a certain point. He was sort of at the back of the group, but you got to say that is kind of classic Simon Yates on stages like this. Adam Yates finishes last of the group. He stays on that time in 50th of the 50 that finish in front. Otterbrooks finishes in front. Del Toro loses 131. Chavez 131. Manier didn't make it, Benji. I really thought Manier... I think the weather really was brutal.
I think so too. Now, I would hope that a Classics rider of the future can handle rainy conditions because, well, Belgium is usually not much better. But I also, let's be honest about it, it was a harder stage, 240 kilometers. Do we underrate the distance in affecting the young riders?
I don't know.
I don't know
Gregoire's pretty young.
Yes, but he's got more experience. I think so.
Del Toro, like, when has he done a 240k absolute misery fest for six and a half hours today? 6.5 hours. Miserable. Tomorrow's stage from Norcia to I'm struggling with the pronunciation. Norcia to Trasacco, 190 Ks. They're not giving them any rest. It starts with 14 Ks, 4% out of neutral. And then Valico La Crocetta, there's another climb, 12 Ks, 5.7%. The last 50, 60 Ks are flat. I'm telling you now, the breakaway is winning this. If it was ever in doubt before, with Milan being banged up, maybe not starting tomorrow, there's just no way Trek control this for him.
That is the automatic thought process, indeed, where I would immediately think, okay, mountains in the first half of the stage, ability to form a harder to control breakaway is definitely there. Is there a possibility that the fact that Milan leaves the race or is injured or doesn't look good towards tomorrow, that might trigger second row, third row sprinters in this race to think, okay,
Koi could win this.
Now Visma's going to start controlling this. I'm serious. Like, there's going to be teams that are not called Little Trek that will now think we should control it for our sprinter instead.
I mean, Quickstep, Paul Magnier, Decathlon, Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett's in good form. And it's a flat finish. He can win. Groupama for Paul Penway. Tudor for Zylard. I'm checking the weather. I think a lot of it depends on the weather. I just looked up the weather in Norcia in Italy. Tomorrow. Why is it in Fahrenheit? Why is my computer in Fahrenheit? First they come for Greenland, and then they come for tomorrow the forecast is a high of 7 degrees.
For Greenland.
And a low of 4 degrees. That's in the starting town. And they're going to go up to 1,550 meters. The break is going to win. The break with that weather.
Which break rider is going to win is the big question.
Let's see if a certain man made today's... Oh, no. Magnus caught 16 minutes today in the Sam Bennett group.
Oh.
Maybe
on purpose.
I don't think so. I don't think so. He won that Dauphiné stage last year, which was hard as hell.
Yeah.
Who finished sharpish today? Give me Francesco Bussato of Intermarché Wanty from the breakaway in a small group sprint.
Other possibilities, Tobias Johannesson. How far is Hirschi in today's stage?
Gone.
Did he lose a lot of time? What, sorry?
Oh, no, he finished in the front group, but he couldn't sprint.
That's very sad. I need him to be on a time there. Roger Adria, that's also someone I would like to look forward to see in a breakaway.
Dorian Godon.
Movistar needs to get in the break, I'm sorry. Pelayo Sanchez, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's going to be breakaway tomorrow, and you're going to see, Bussato, Godon, maybe Gal Glivar from Alpecin, Tesfacion from Movistar, who can sprint. I think it's going to be breakaway time. So,
but despite Ganna being in the lead, I've been very, very much enjoying Ineos' strategies, even in Tirreno, by the way. But looking at the team, I'm not sure they're going to be sending. Maybe Connor Swift goes in the breakaway. Maybe a Madouas. Even the Cage First only has 5 riders left after Valgren crashed out.
Yeah, Valgren would have been a good one.
Who could win this from the breakaway? Vendrame from the breakaway?
Could do.
Yeah, it's true. Like, it is very much possible.
The riders are going to be so miserable tomorrow.
I feel like it's going to be an Alpecin rider.
That's why I picked Liver. Well, I didn't.
I'm going for Van der Poel
20
himself.
riders. Oh, true. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty good. And, let Ganner in the break. Hey, hold on, I just had a thought, Benji.
Yeah?
If you're Ineos, don't you want to play with UAE a bit? UAE did not look good today. If you're Ineos, flip the script. You're in the leader's jersey with Ganner. Go in the break with Ganner.
Van Avermaet style. I'd love it.
It's a great stage. It's the best possible stage for Ganner with 14 Ks, 5%, and then a flat finish. UAE did not look sharp today. I think Ineos got to open it on that first climb and just cause chaos.
I love it. I absolutely love the strategy. Very clear. I want to see it. Do I expect them to do it? No. Do I want them to do it? Yes.
No, this is new Ineos.
Will it definitely shock UAE to the system? Yes. Is there a chance Ayuso is there more than Almeida in response to you? But his team won't be there.
His team won't be there.
So I'm all for it. I want to see it.
If you go to stage 6 with Ayuso still in this position, he's going to kill everybody. He is so strong at the moment. So I think, tomorrow could be interesting. Could be interesting. These long, midweek, Tirreno, 4 degrees, 190 Ks. Yeah, mental toughness. I couldn't do it. I don't go outside when it's below 10 degrees. That's not true.
I don't go outside at all.
Alrighty. Hope you enjoyed the... Oh, we also had GP Oettingen, which was won. It was a circuit race in good weather in Belgium, won by Belgium, by Julie de Wilde for Phoenix de Koenigs. They were the strongest team in the race by far. They literally did like a HCC Columbia lead out after the final climb. It was really, really impressive from Flora Perkins, Marta Troyan, and co. So they dominated. She wins. And second was, she beat some good sprinters, Bertosola, Consoni, Lach, Baril. And anyway, we got Binder coming up this weekend for the women. Hope you enjoyed the recap, and we'll see you with the doubleheader again tomorrow. Till then, ciao.